I bought this the other day and we're gonna create a planter box out of it. Now these, I'm gonna make 2 planter boxes and I'm using scrap wood that is in my garage because it's piling up. And the thought behind this is that it's gonna be a 2-sided planter box. So one side and one edge is going to be one design, and then the other side and edge are going to be another design as well. So here's what we have. We have a maze type and then just this standard 1-2. So we're going to start cutting all these pieces. We're going to go to the table saw first and cut out the actual frame of the planter box. After the frame is cut, which, as a side note, so that you guys know, the size is going to be 24 inches wide, 9 inches deep, and then it's going to be 24 inches tall, but then we're going to add legs onto it as well, so it'll be slightly taller than that. It will fit into this 24-inch planter box. So we're cutting out 1/2-inch plywood pieces to fit that, and then we'll add the trim pieces that go on top of that after. So I'm going to use these boards. I just cut these down from a 4x4, so they're 1.5 by 1.5 now. And then I drilled holes through them, which I'm going to do. I am using 3/8-inch drill bit because I'm going to be using these exterior screws because that's what I have on hand as well. I've measured down 6.5 inches from the top, and I'm putting it here to allow the planter box to sit on this. And so what I need to do is add some more holes in here, and then the screws will be attached with some wood glue as well. And then this will be the one side, and then we'll put the sides on it. Side note, so I have this side and I have this side to go through the other way as well. But that gives us our feet for it, so this plywood is not sitting directly on the surface. This is a cedar, so I wanted to use something that will hold up better to weathering. So plywood wouldn't do that the best, so I'm using cedar as the feet. For this middle piece, I'm just kind of centering it in the middle. I'm not worrying about measuring it, and then just installing it. Oh, and this is exterior wood glue because that's important as well. And then I have my marks already on here, so just gonna center it on those marks, put it into place. Okay, so there's our first brace, and then I'm just going to add the legs now. I assembled the first box just to see what issues I ran into as I was creating it. And so now I'm going to hurry and show you how I assembled that first box and what worked and what didn't work. The first time I assembled it, this is the top, so I placed this on the ground and then I assembled it, and that didn't work very well. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to assemble it each side at a time. So we're going to hurry and add some glue to the legs. And I'm going to use a nail gun to attach these. I just placed it on individually. That worked out great. You do want to be careful in this upper part where there's no legs. So you'll notice right here to that point, see how these ones kind of shot out, but it's fine, it'll be hidden, so it doesn't really matter. We're gonna hurry and do this side. While it's upside down like this, I'm actually probably gonna hurry and add the screws. We're gonna install the other bottom piece or side piece the same way. Oh, and I didn't mention, so you wanna make sure the nails just go through this part. That's what I was kind of showing you. But if you do it at an angle and then an angle, it'll help lock it in better. So that's what I was doing. One of the issues that I found was that this wouldn't sit very flat. It's narrower at the bottom. And so the way that I fixed that was I got just another piece of plywood and it just sits right in there, and I'll just glue it and nail it down. And then now that has a nice flat base. Let's sand this bad boy. I'm ready to start installing all these scraps to this guy, but I wanted to show you, I did a test mock-up first. We're gonna add that maze pattern to this guy, and I'm gonna show you what I learned, tricks along the way. Trick number one was I was just trying to follow my plans, but because I had to change stuff and I didn't label it correctly, things weren't lining properly. This needs to be opposite of this other one. That way they can butt up against each other. So this side is gonna have the end piece on it, which is this guy. It's gonna be over here. It's right on the edge of where this other piece connects with it. We don't have to take into account the edge on that side. And we're gonna create the grid system actually on the wood. That made it so much easier. I will have plans for this eventually that will tell you the exact measurements to cut for the wood, so that way you don't have to do this. But if you want to do it yourself and kind of make your own pattern, this is how the easiest way I found to do it. So you're gonna butt it up to that end over here, and you're gonna create this type of system. And you're just gonna do this all the way down, and then you'll do it the other way as well once I get all the way through. So we have that box pattern, checkered pattern all throughout this board now. The top right up here, if you notice on the other one, if you did notice, there's a trim piece at the top. So I scribbled it out up there so that I remember not to do it. Plus I put X's on the back side of this because that's gonna be covered the 1/2 inch back here from that big trim piece, plus also the top as well up there. We have the checkered going on over here. So to create your own pattern, these are my spacers, and they are 1.5 inches. It's the size from here to here. And that's the gap that I want for all of these. On this one side, it's gonna be a little bit wider just because it's not even because of my 1/2 inch plywood that I used. The plans that I'll be making are gonna be 3/4 plywood. I recommend 3/4 plywood anyways, so but because I'm using scrap, that's what we have to deal with. If I want to put this guy right here, for example, on those grid system, I'm going to have a gap there and a gap there, but also a gap this way. So that's what that grid system does, is 2 of those blocks is that gap. So you don't really even need the spacers, but that's what I was doing at first, and just doing that without the space, without that, and it made it difficult. I'm gonna just take my pattern that I kind of did out, and I'm gonna put it on the wood itself. And then I know exactly what I'm cutting and where it's going after. And that way too, you can erase. Let me hurry and get this design down, and then we'll move on. We got all of the designs on the boards. I'm gonna show it to you so you can see it, and I'm gonna explain a couple of things because I want you to understand it as well if you're gonna do this yourself. Here is where we're going to be putting those, where I X'd out certain areas. I marked certain spots, so you'll notice this is like a double heavier line in this area that we're not going to be filling because this is that end, this end piece. It's going to be 1/2 inch plus 3/4 of an inch because each of these spaces is 3/4 inch. I don't think I ever mentioned that. This is 3/4 of an inch, each trim piece, each individual section. And so this is going to be an end piece that hangs over on the other side, just to give us a trimmed out piece. So wherever these darker lines are where the pieces are going to go across. So you can see that. And I did it up here as well at the top. And again, there's going to be a trim piece up here as well. But wherever that dark line is indicates where things are going to go down. So it just helps with the grid system itself. So this grid system's all done up. We are going to cut things now. I actually put it on this side already. If you're going off my plans, they're going to be slightly different because I will recommend, instead of this 1/2 inch plywood that I'm using, I'm going to recommend 3/4 inch, which is what these pieces are. So everything will be 3/4. So you're going to have a little bit extra right here. So there will be some pieces in some of these areas if you are using my plans, just as a side note. But here's kind of how I laid out this one. And I just glue down and nail everything into place. But I'm going to show you a trick with the miter saw to get these pieces cut so you get the same size of piece multiple times. Here is the trick at the miter saw. So each of these is 3/4 inch, right? So if I need to fill up 3 boxes, this is going to be 2 1/4 inch to make that equal. So I've already marked my spot, and to cut this multiple times because I have lots of this piece, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a stop block on my miter saw that's clamped into place, and I've already measured this one, so if I bring down my saw, it's exactly where it needs to be. It's hitting that mark where it needs to hit perfectly. And so what I'll do is I'm just going to cut this at this spot multiple times to get me the amount that I need. And make sure your hands stay away. And you're going to want your blade to stop fully or this will fly out. All the pieces are cut, and so now we're going to just start placing them where they're going to go and make sure that everything is cut properly. I will note that, so I showed you the trick with that, making sure that those cuts are the same consistently. I would recommend you cut one and come and make sure that it fits in those spaces that you have before cutting all of the other ones, just to make sure you actually have the right size. So little side note there. But yeah, we're gonna hurry and start putting all these in place, and we're gonna put some glue on and nail them down. Now that all this is on, we're going to add the trim piece, which I already have cut. So we're just going to nail that guy into place on this end. And then we'll put the trim piece up here as well. I decided to cover the top of this, so what I did is I cut some more plywood, not what I would want to use, but that's what I have on hand, and so I cut 1.5 inch strips, and then I did 45-degree angles at the end, and it's the distance from the inside to the inside points on these guys. So I'm just gonna glue them into place and nail them. Now we're gonna spray paint. So to install these, you just cut them at a 20-degree angle and then have it be flush up against the end right here. And then you'll just bring it down to the bottom and you'll put up against it just to see where to cut off this end piece. So you'll add the 3/4 inch and then you'll just nail it into place. And the gap between, again, is 3/4, and you're just going to do that for each of them. So you're just cutting it like we did for the grid system itself, but this time just with regular wood. I used oak because that's what I had on hand, and at the 20-degree angle it just gives you this nice smooth edge, and then it wraps around and goes down to the bottom as well. Well, they're done. So this one has that one showing, and here's the other one as well. Lots of fun.